everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 15 of Bookmas. Today we're going to talk about my top 10 releases that I'm looking forward to in 2025. This was very difficult to do because there are so many books coming out. This could change with time, but as of right now and what I know is coming out, these are the 10 books that I'm looking forward to the most. These aren't in any super particular order, but they also aren't not in any particular certain order, but number 10 is Scythe and Sparrow by Rid Weaver, and this is the third and final book in the Ruinous Love trilogy. This book will follow Fionn and Rose. Fionn is a doctor, he's a surgeon, and he takes Rose in. She's a carnival performer, and she ends up getting injured, and he takes her in to nurse her back to health, and they have a forced proximity, obviously, situation, and something grows out of that. I'm not sure what the time frame on this is going to be because she's living with him during the first two books, so I don't know if it's going to be the same timeline. We're just going to get their points of view and what's going on with them because we don't get too much of them in the first two books. Very much looking forward to that. I did love Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark, and these books are also very pretty, so I love a black cover with a bright or jewel-toned accent color as the design, so that's what these all are. So that book comes out on February 11th. Then at number 9, I have Rewind It Back, which is the 5th book in the Windy City series by Liz Tomford, and this is Rio's book. And that is all I know, is that it's Rio's book. There's really nothing that I have been able to find that explains what the premise is going to be, what the tropes are. I haven't looked too far because I don't really want to know, but the last time I looked on Amazon, there's not even a cover, there's really no synopsis. But this is supposed to come out at the end of April on the 24th. Then in number 8, we have Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston, and this is coming out June 17th. And the synopsis on this is a hit-making songwriter and a bitter musician share a startling and inexplicable connection that they'll do anything to shake in the next sparkling magical book from Ashley Poston. So I guess this girl hears this voice, this melody in her head. She hears this guy's voice in her head playing this melody, singing this melody that doesn't really have words or anything, but then this guy ends up showing up in her town because she has that voice in her head and he has the same voice. That's all I really know. Obviously, if you've read Ashley Poston, you know that her books all have a little bit of magical realism in them, and that's what makes them so unique and so special, and I have loved every book that she has come out with. The 7-Year Slip is my favorite, but I did like A Novel Love Story too, and I know a lot of people didn't, but I really did enjoy that book, so I will buy it if she's going to write it. So that is coming out, like I said, in June. April 8th, we have the third and final book in the Powerless trilogy, and that is Fearless. So this will just be the continuation of Peyton and Kai's story and how Kit, Kai's brother, and ties into it. I'm interested to see how this ends compared to the Red Queen quartet, because I know that they started off very similar, and I know Lauren Roberts took a lot of inspiration from that series. But I think they did start to diverge. Reckless, the second book in the Powerless series, did take a different turn. There were still overall themes that were very similar, but it did take a little bit of a different turn than the Red Queen series did. So I'm waiting on pins and needles, like everybody that has probably read that series and read that second book, on that cliffhanger. So I will be reading that book the day it comes out if it's in my hands, because I did have Reckless. Actually, the day before it came out, Amazon shipped it, and I ended up getting it the day before, and I read it within 24 hours. Because I didn't want anyone to spoil it for me. Then coming out April 1st, we have Say You'll Remember Me. I love that Abby Jimenez chose a Taylor Swift lyric for her title. I don't know if it was intentional. I'm going to assume it's intentional, but I love it. That's Abby Jimenez's new release, if you couldn't tell. And let's see, I haven't really looked too much into what this is about. So there's this guy named Xavier Rush who comes very, very close to being the perfect guy until he opens his mouth. So he's a veterinarian giving Greek god vibes, all while cuddling a tiny kitten. Immediately, yes. That is until he opens his mouth and proves that even sculpted gods can say the absolute wrong thing. Really wrong. And of course, there's nothing Samantha loves more than proving an asshole wrong. Unless, of course, he can admit he made a mistake. But after one incredible and seemingly endless date, possibly the best in living history, Samantha is forced to admit the truth that her family is in crisis and any kind of relationship would be impossible. She begs him to forget her, to remember their night together as a perfect moment, as crushing as that might be. Only no amount of distance or time is nearly enough to forget that something between them. And the only thing better than one single perfect memory is to make a life and even a love worth remembering. That is going to be sad. Get the tissues ready. And then also in April, but towards the end of the month, the 22nd, we have Emily Henry's new book, Great Big Beautiful Life. And again, I haven't really looked at what this is, but I recently read I actually read all of Emily Henry's books this year. I didn't realize that until the other day when I was looking back at all the books I've read. I didn't start reading her books until this year, and I did get through her entire backlist of her romance books, because I think she has some like fantasy books and stuff that she wrote before People We Meet on Vacation. I don't remember what was the first book that she wrote romance-wise, but I have enjoyed her books. They are not like 5-star reads for me, but I have liked them. I really liked Funny Story. That's probably my favorite out of all of them. So this is two writers compete for a chance to tell the larger-than-life story of a woman with more than a couple of plot twists up her sleeve in this dazzling and sweeping new novel from Emily Henry. So this woman is only giving each of them pieces of her story, pieces they can't swap to put together because of an ironclad NDA and an inconvenient yearning pulsing between them every time they're in the same room. And it's becoming abundantly clear that their story, just like the tale Margaret's spinning, could be a mystery, tragedy, or love ballad, depending on who's telling it. Okay, so two writers, both trying to interview this woman, and I guess she's only giving them each half the story. And because they work for different companies, they can't share that. So they're both trying to tell the story, but they don't have everything. That's interesting. Again, her books aren't 5-star reads for me, but they are. I usually like the underlying story more than the romance, like what the theme and what is trying to be conveyed, like as the overall arching plot of the book. Like with Happy Place, I did not love that romance, but I liked how she tackled like getting older and your friend groups changing and accepting that and learning how to live with that and adapting to it. That was what the overall takeaway from that book was for me. So that is typically what I look for in an Emily Henry book. So we'll see what this one ends up being. Then on January 21st, we have Onyx Storm, which is the third book in the Empyrean series, and that is the Fourth Wing series, for those of you that don't know that. But again, we had a nice cliffhanger at the end of Iron Flame, and I look forward to seeing what she's going to do with it. I like that she's throwing these twists in there, that it's not going to be this like perfect situation of a fantasy world and fantasy romance. There's going to be things that they have to overcome, and it could end tragically. I don't trust that she's not going to end this series tragically. So I'm preparing myself now for things to get worse before they get better, if they even do get better. But I do like this world. I love a dragon. You put a dragon in a book and I will read it. I have quite a few books on my shelf that have dragons in them because of that. So I'm looking forward to that. And the special edition for that book is actually beautiful. So we'll see. We'll see what she does with this story. But if you don't know what Fourth Wing is about, for some reason, it is about a group of dragon riders from this academy where you can be a number of different things, but it focuses mainly on the dragon riders and Violet and Xaden. And they are kind of like sworn enemies, so it isn't enemies to lovers. And they pair with these dragons when they are in their first year, if they are lucky, and if they survive. And now there's this like other war going on that they're finding more and more about because the people in charge have been like keeping everything a secret. No, but they didn't want everybody to know how bad it was and what they were doing to some of these other towns in order to save themselves and all of that. So the war is becoming more and more prevalent. The first book took place at the academy and it was basically just a school setting. And then the second one definitely delved more into the war and where that's headed and how bad it really is and who the baddies actually are. So I think there's still going to be a lot of twists and turns in these books, and I'm looking forward to it. Then we have The Ragpicker King, which is the second book in the Chronicles of Castelline, which is Cassandra Clare's new adult series. The first book was Swordcatcher. This is The Ragpicker King, which if you've read the first one, the Ragpicker King is an actual person in that book that is kind of the lord of the underworld mafia kind of group in this kingdom. And our main characters, Kel, Connor, and I want to say Lynn from the first book, they end up having to like work with this Ragpicker King because of multiple reasons in the first book, and now they're a little bit more involved with him than they'd probably like to be. So I'm assuming that's where the story's going to go. It's going to revolve more around his world and what his people are doing. The first book, he was in it, but he wasn't the main part of it. So since the book is named after him, I'm going to have to assume that he's going to be more of a major role in this book. I'm not going to try to explain the entire premise of Swordcatcher because I've tried to do it before and I have completely butchered it. But it is like a fantasy world in this kingdom where there's these two different types of people. There's your normal people like Kel and Connor, and then you've got Lynn Castor, who is I forget the name of the people, the group of people she's in, but they have magic and they've been kept almost as like servants and slaves in this kingdom because they're kept sequestered in this like area of the kingdom and they're only called out when they're needed and they're not allowed to really leave. unless it's like certain times and everything. And she ends up being needed by the king, and Connor's the crown prince. So she ends up having a friendship with him and Kel, who is Connor's like body double, for lack of a better word. Not going to go into much more detail about the plot, but that's the overarching like base of the story. And there is like war and stuff going on as well. So I really liked that first book. I'm probably going to have to read a little bit of a synopsis, if not try to read that book again before this one comes out, because it'll be a year and a half from when Swordcatcher came out and I read it to when this book comes out. And my brain's good, but it's not that good. Then we have The Knight and the Moth, which is Rachel Gillig's new duology, the first book in the new duology. So we have Sybil, who's our main character, and she is a diviner. And so she sees dreams that basically people come to her to ask what's going to happen in their lives based on her dreams that she's having. And she has to, like, I think serve so many years in this, like, group of diviners, and then she'll be free. So yeah, just as she and her sister diviners are nearing the end of their service, a mysterious knight arrives at their cathedral. He's rude, he's heretical, he's devilishly handsome, and he has no respect for their visions, or at least Sybil's visions. So when then her sister diviners start vanishing like one by one, and she needs his help to figure out what's going on and how to stop it, because they think it's a god that's doing it, and only like someone like a heretic like him can defeat a god. So they need to work together basically, because she needs to know what's going on. They probably need her dreams and her visions to be able to predict what's going to be happening, but then he's the only one that can defeat this person that's doing it. The cover of this book is gorgeous, and I loved the Shepherd King duology, so I'm definitely going to give her a shot with this one and see if I like this series just as much. And she has said that she will probably only ever write duology. She's not going to write big, long series, which I appreciate. I love a good duology because it's only 2 books, but I'm looking forward to that a lot. Then the number 1 book I'm looking forward to, which if you've been watching these videos, you probably know what I'm going to say. And that is Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli. It is the second book in the Heartless Hunter duology. And this is a witch and witch hunter romance where we have Rune, who is our main female, and she is a witch that also moonlights as a socialite to try to figure out like what's going on, because she tries to free these witches and figure out who they're going after and what is going on in the like hunter circuit, so that she can prevent them from being kidnapped and killed. And then Gideon, who is the witch hunter and like the best witch hunter in their city, town, area, whatever. And he has his suspicions about her, and she obviously knows he's a witch hunter, and they're using each other, but then they're also kind of developing feelings for each other, even though they know they're enemies. So it is a true enemies to lovers romance. It is YA, so it's very low spice, but the actual like tension and the feelings that I got from that first book were intense. Like, I'm so excited for the second book. I hope so much that it does not let me down. I read another one of Kristen Cicerelli's books earlier this year after I read Heartless Hunter because I loved it so much, and that was Edgewood, I want to say. And it was a standalone fantasy, and I loved that one just as much, so I'm hoping she doesn't disappoint on this, and that this duology ends just as strong as it started. All right, so those are my top 10 as of right now that I know is coming out in 2025 releases. Let me know what book you're most looking forward to coming out in 2025, and if any of the ones on this list are ones that you also have your eye on. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and I hope to see you all for Bookmas Day 16.